Hello everyone, welcome to BAJIRAO IAS Academy, the Hindu newspaper analysis. Today is 18th May 2024 and I have few articles for today's discussion. So one by one, let's start our discussion. So before discussing them, you all knew that I've given one practice question yesterday. The question was, right to property under Article 300A considered which of the following types of right or rights? So the options are A, fundamental right, B, constitutional right, C, legal right, and D, both legal right as well as both legal right and fundamental right. Okay, so it is the option is incorrect. Okay, so here it is a constitutional right. So both constitutional right as well as the legal right. So the correct answer for this question is option D. Please understand, it is not a fundamental right, it is a constitutional right as well as legal right, because the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act removed right to property from the fundamental rights, and then the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act made right to property a constitutional right. Now, apart from this right, a constitutional right, it is also a legal right. How it is a legal right? We'll understand this a very brief way. So, a legal right is something that is provided by the acts or statutes, whereas the constitutional right is directly provided in the constitution. So there is no confusion about that. It is very, very clear, right? So you all knew what is a legal right. So legal right provided by any legislation or a statute, and constitutional right provided in the constitution. However, the answer to the question whether the right to property is a legal right or the constitutional right, so we can say that the right to property is actually a legal right first, because it is provided under the Transfer of Property Act. So because of that reason, we can classify or categorize right to property as a legal right, and the right to property can also be termed or called as a constitutional right. Why? Because the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act removed right to property and made this part of the Indian Constitution under Article 300A, and because of that reason, we can say that the right to property is a constitutional right, as it is directly provided under the Constitution, and therefore it can be said that the right to property is a legal right as well as the constitutional right. So the correct answer for this question is option D. Now, a small correction here, it is not a fundamental right, so change it with the constitutional right and legal right, then the correct answer would be D. So today also I have one more important practice question from Polity. The question is with respect to the code of conduct. Now the 18th Lok Sabha elections are being conducted, so therefore it is very important that there is a chance that UPSC may ask question from the code of conduct, right? So consider the following statements with respect to the moral code of conduct or code of conduct, model code of conduct. So option A says that statement 1 says that Election Commission of India under Article 324 issues model code of conduct. Statement 2 says that the model code of conduct is operational from the date on which the election schedule is announced until the date of the result of announcement. So these are two statements with respect to the model code of conduct, and try to answer this question in the comment section. And I hope all of you knew the answer for this question. And please type the answer in the comment section, and I'll provide the explanation along with the answer in tomorrow's class. And let's get into the discussion. The first article that we are going to start this discussion is with the deforestation that has been taking place in a large scale. So the article is about nearly 6 million trees disappeared from the farmlands according to a study. Now, plantation or afforestation drives are very, very important in the present context, because now if you look at the plants or forests, they are actually the natural sink of carbon. So natural sink of carbon in the sense that the trees can directly absorb the atmospheric carbon and they can store the carbon in their tissues. So therefore we can say that the forests are natural sink of the carbon, and forestation actually plays a very important role in combating the climate change or increasing the global warming. Why? Because due to increased emissions of greenhouse gases, majorly carbon, the global warming has been rapidly increasing, and that has been further driving climate change. So therefore, afforestation actually plays a very important role. But contrary to this, the recent study has been saying that nearly 6 million trees disappeared from the farmlands in India. Now we'll try to understand this in a very detailed manner. So what this article actually saying is that within a 3-year period of time from 2019 to 2022, India may have lost around 5.8 million full grown trees. And in fact, these full grown trees actually play a very important role in carbon sequestration. Okay, so they absorb a lot of atmospheric carbon. But the study has been found out that within a span of 3 years from 2019 to 2022, India may have lost close to 5.8 million full grown trees in the agriculture land. So not in the forest lands, but in the agricultural lands. Now, agroforestry, one of the forestation method. Agroforestry, you may have often heard about this agroforestry. Now in this agroforestry, forestry and agriculture can be taken care side by side. And in fact, agroforestry is one of the methods through which the farmers can earn a decent amount of income, and at the same time afforestation, or increasing the green cover as an objective will also be fulfilled through this agroforestry method. So therefore, on the agricultural lands, we have seen a large scale deforestation, and this is as per the satellite imagery based analysis by researchers at the University of Copenhagen, Denmark. And in fact, the very same research has been showing us that 11% of such trees detected via a satellite during 2010 and 2011 were no longer visible when reviewed in 2018 and 2022. So this has been indicating that the deforestation in India has been taking at a very faster pace, or much faster pace, and that is a cause of concern for us, especially for a country like India. Why? Because see, understand, we wanted to create natural carbon sink through afforestation drives, and at the same time, along with the afforestation drive, we also wanted to become net zero by 2070. And India, to become net zero by 2070, it is very important that we must grow a lot of trees. And afforestation is one of the ways through which we can achieve the net zero emission target by 2070, along with several other green targets. And in fact, the forest cover also plays a very important role in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. Now, in this context, deforestation is certainly a concern for us. Now, this news article is also telling us that the Forest Survey of India actually conducts a regular surveys on the forest cover or tree cover across the country. But the problem with the Forest Survey of India data is that it publishes data on changes in the acreage and not individual trees. Now, if you look at the recently published data about the deforestation, cutting down trees, so this data has been telling us that around 5.8 million trees were cut down or they disappeared. But in contrary to this, the Forest Survey of India actually don't provide data on individual trees. Rather, it provides or publishes data on the changes in the forest cover or tree cover in an acreage. And in fact, the latest Forest Survey of India report says that India's tree cover has increased in 2021 over 2019. So that is what the Forest Survey of India has been telling us, that India's afforestation drive has significantly increased in recent times. The forest cover or tree cover is also increased. Now, the increase is mostly reported in the southern states, but on the other hand, the northeastern states, they have registered the decline in the forest cover as per the Forest Survey of India report. And in fact, the present analysis actually focuses on the farmlands, agricultural lands, and it also tracks the individual trees and their status in the farmlands. And in fact, it also relies on maps from multiple microsatellites and at the same time the machine learning analysis to estimate the trends beginning in 2010. Okay, so different data inputs put together to decide the tree cover of an area or number of trees which were cut down in an area as per this recent survey. So about 56% of India is covered by farmland and 22% of India's geographical area is covered by the forests. And in fact, National Forest Policy actually envisioned that India's geographical area, around 33% of the geographical area should be covered with the forest areas, but in India as of now we have only 22% of the area is covered with the forest and 56% of India's geographical area is covered by the farmland. And in fact, with the largest agriculture area in the world, India is known as the largest area under the agriculture. So therefore, changes in tree cover or declining number of tree cover in its farmland will also significantly impacts India's overall green cover or overall tree cover. However, the trees or plants on these farmlands are very often overlooked by the government's researchers. Because see, understand, India has around 56% of its geographical area under agriculture. So therefore, those plants and trees on these agriculture lands also plays a very important role in further augmenting India's tree cover, the forest cover. So therefore, the problem is that the trees on these farmlands are very often overlooked by the government, and that is a concern, because if the government or any research body takes adequate care of the plants on these agriculture fields also, so that is another way through which we can further increase the green cover. Now, in fact, the disappearance of mature farmland trees was observed in many areas, but the numbers are actually exceeded to 5 to 10%. So the trees were gradually disappearing, number of trees are being cut down, and the green cover is actually being diminished. And when the trees are cut down, the area is actually brought under the agriculture. One such field which is heavily grown after cutting down all these trees was paddy or rice farming. Okay, so several hotspot areas have lost up to 50% of their large farmland trees. Okay, so this is particularly concerning because they have lost almost 50% of the farmland trees. So with up to 22 trees per square kilometer are actually disappearing. So the tree loss estimate was on the conservative side. Okay, so not they have not taken the extreme tree loss, rather a conservative estimate, and most of the losses were likely between 2018 to 2020. Now, apart from that, a most important or most common reason for the large scale disappearance of these trees was because of conversion of the farmland to paddy fields. Cutting down these trees and converting the farmlands into the paddy fields. And in fact, a certain loss rate is natural. So, it is natural that the trees would grow and trees would start disappearing. But the problem is the rate at which the trees are disappearing. The trees are being cut down on these agroforestry lands. And apart from that, India's agroforestry management is also contributing to the declining number of trees in the Indian farmlands. And in fact, so if you look at India's established agroforestry systems, so they are replaced with the paddy rice fields, and this is one factor where trees are being cut down. And when trees are being cut down, more and more area will be brought under the farming. So therefore, the paddy farming or rice farming is actually expanded and intensified in recent times, and this is a development facilitated by the availability of newly established water supplies. See, providing irrigation infrastructure to rain-fed areas, so areas which are dry land in nature. So what happens that those fields are now brought under the cultivation. So since those fields which are now brought under the cultivation, especially the paddy cultivation, the farmers have been cutting down the trees so that more and more land would be brought under the farming. And therefore large and mature trees within these fields are removed by the farmers, and trees are now being cultivated within a separate block plantations, typically with the lower ecological value. Now if you can ask me a question, why cutting down trees or plants or large scale trees is a concern. So what are the basic concerns which are actually associated with the cutting down these trees? Now, first and foremost factor that we have to understand, global warming, because we have been increasingly using fossil fuels, and these fossil fuels are emitting carbon into the atmosphere. But on the other hand, these trees actually absorb the atmospheric carbon and lowers the global warming and also reduces the climate change as well. And apart from that, India has several ambitious goals and targets with respect to dealing with the climate change or reducing the levels of climate change. Even the emission reductions also. So one such program was reducing emissions through deforestation. Okay, so REDD plus and REDD, so that were launched by World Bank. So that is reducing emissions through the deforestation. Now in this context, when we have the increased tree cover or increased green cover, so they could increasingly absorb the atmospheric carbon and reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. And apart from that, don't you think that these trees are a potential source of income for the farmers? Okay, so they are potential source of the income for the farmers whenever the farmers have been facing distress, because these agroforestry is also part of the integrated farming technique or integrated farming method. And in fact, these trees or plants actually play a very important role in recharging the underground water. Okay, recharging underground water tables, so that the farmers would be able to get adequate availability of water. So they would have adequate availability of water throughout the year, and that would further support cultivation of more and more crops, and that will significantly increases the crop productivity along with the farmers income as well. So because of all these factors, cultivation of trees or plants on these farmlands is very important, but declining or disappearing number of trees on these farmlands is a significantly concern. And here you can also see there is a policy vacuum, or there is no policy which deals with the farmland trees. So therefore the government should also focus on this farmland trees and farmland green cover, and government must further extend these incentives for the farmers who cultivate these trees on these farmlands. So therefore we can start a Jan Andolan right from the grassroots level, and that could significantly increases the green cover across the country. So we can also significantly utilizes our potential with respect to growing more number of trees even on farmlands. Okay, so that's all about this article. And the next article is with respect to the green growth, and this green growth addressing the present carbon emissions, and at the same time achieving the adequate renewable energy capacity through significant improvement in the infrastructure. Now what is the context of this particular article? So recently India has been observing or different parts of India have been observing the intense heat wave like condition, and that is being confirmed by the World Health Meteorological Organization as well, that the 2023 was the warmest year on record, and this has been underscores that urgent need to address the climate change, because climate change is one factor. Climate change is actually result of the increasing greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and that has been contributing to the climate change. And the intense heat wave like conditions is also because of the changing climates. Now intense heat waves actually impact the environment, so they also have a drastic or a negative impact on the ecology and at the same time human health as well. So therefore, due to intense heat waves and their intensity has been further increasing, it is very important for us to address the climate change as quickly as possible. So therefore, this has actually intensified the focus on reducing carbon emissions in major sectors like power sector, industry, particularly in high emitting countries like India. Now in fact, please understand, India is the third largest emitter of carbon into the atmosphere. So the first largest emitter is China, second largest emitter US, and the third largest emitter India. So India's green energy initiatives. So India as of now have launched a lot of green energy initiatives. So the overall focus of this green energy initiatives is to make sure that India's economy makes a sustainable transition from the fossil fuel based economy to this green economy or renewable energy based economy. So for that particular purpose, Indian government has launched number of policies. So in order to promote the green energy, for example, the government of India extended the production linked incentive scheme for the solar modules. Now whoever making the solar modules in India, whether the foreign investor or the domestic manufacturer of these solar modules, so they will receive the incentives under the production linked incentive scheme. That the government actually extended this production linked incentive scheme to 14 sectors, and the solar modules is one such sector. And apart from this, the government has also been providing the viability gap funding for the offshore wind energy projects. Now offshore wind energy projects are actually established in the water. Okay, so offshore within the sea or any other place, and the government has been providing viability gap funding for this offshore wind energy projects to further intensify or further encourage more and more investments into the offshore wind energy projects. And after that, the government has also extended viability gap funding for the battery storage projects. So similar to this, the government has launched a program called FAME, Faster Adoption and Mobilization of Electric Vehicles. So as per this FAME program, so the government has launched it in two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. So gradually expand our capabilities, gradually further enhance the existing electricity infrastructure. For example, charging stations, introducing new vehicles, and also setting targets for the automobile manufacturers to rapidly switch over to the electric vehicles production and adoption of electric vehicles by the consumers. So all these things are part of the faster adoption and mobilization of electric vehicles. And in order to promote the adoption of electric vehicles, the government has launched certain incentives or providing certain incentives under this FAME program. And apart from that, other very important program was National Green Hydrogen Mission. So the government has also launched National Green Hydrogen Mission. So in fact, this mission is known as one of the most ambitious missions that the government has launched, because the green hydrogen is a clean fuel. It does not come up with any negative emissions or any harmful emissions into the atmosphere, or it does not release any pollutants, and it will not increase or it will not emit the greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And because of that reason, the green hydrogen is being increasingly emphasized. Now in green hydrogen, how this green hydrogen is being produced? It is being produced by the process called electrolysis, and this electrolysis process will actually involve the usage of renewable energies for the production of the green hydrogen, and green hydrogen can be further used as a fuel. And because of that reason, the green hydrogen will have a lot of potential in the future, and it is a completely green fuel. So therefore the government has launched this national green hydrogen mission. The details of this national green hydrogen mission, you can go through these details, because these details are also very, very important, that the UPSC may ask question on this national green hydrogen mission as well. And apart from launching national green hydrogen mission, so there were certain amendments were also made in the energy conservation bill, so that actually focuses on increasing the energy use efficiency and conservation of energy. And at the same time, the government has also launched the green bonds, and it actually highlights India's commitment to reducing the carbon emissions. Now, what are these green bonds? Green bonds actually incentivizes individuals who have undertaken the environmentally sustainable projects, whether it is afforestation, waste management, waste to energy generation. So all those projects will be provided certain green bonds. Green bonds actually incentivizes those green projects. And apart from that, there are certain voluntary steps and risks would also be involved in this green hydrogen or green energy production, because now we are planning to shift towards a greener renewable fuels. So that requires a lot of technology, because it is technology intensive, and at the same time it is also capital intensive. However, there are a lot of companies which are started making a voluntary transition into these renewable fuels or green fuels, and they are also facing these transition risks such as technology, because they are technology intensive. Okay, so imagine a company A, and now this company has been using the conventional fuels such as fossil fuels for the production of steel. But if this company wanted to switch over to the renewable fuels, or if it wanted to achieve the energy efficiency, then it must invest significantly in changing its production technology, and at the same time it should also invest adequately in the production of renewable energies. So therefore it requires both technology and significant amount of finances, and that is one such concern. And government regulations, market reputation and legal challenges are other challenges in making a transition or a sustainable transition towards a green economy. Now, so it also requires investment and infrastructure as well. Now, before discussing this, so let's briefly see what exactly is this green economy. Now, green economy actually defined as economy that aims at reducing the environmental risks. Now, in this economy, there are minimal environmental risks, and at the same time, there are also minimal ecological scarcities as well. Now, ecological scarcities in the sense that the resources are conserved and resource use efficiency can be achieved. So therefore it minimizes or reduces the environmental risks along with the ecological scarcities, and that aims for sustainable development without degrading the actual environment, and that is defined as the green economy. Now, in this green economy, we need to take care of the investment and infrastructure needs as well, because so according to some estimates, India's shift towards renewable energy or green energy requires, earlier as part of the mission Panchamrut, we have several targets. So target of 50% non-fossil power by 2030. So we wanted to achieve 50% non-fossil fuel power by 2030. Now India needs an estimated 11 to 12 lakh crore to achieve this target of 50% of the total power which is being produced from the non-fossil fuels by 2030. And apart from that, India requires around 5 to 6 lakh crore in transition and storage infrastructure. So therefore it is a huge capital intensive and at the same time the technology intensive, and because of that reason, because of a limited financial capabilities of India, it is very important that we gradually make a transition towards the green energy. And after that, there is also another concern. The other concern is that the renewables may not be able to provide the round the clock supply of electricity. For example, we have a mega solar power plant or power project. Okay, solar power project. So that was established. Now, what about summers we can produce solar energy uninterrupted manner. But what about the rainy season? Now during rainy season or during cloudy days, we cannot produce enough amounts of solar energy from these mega solar power projects. So therefore, of course, producing the round the clock supply is a concern. And we also have the wind power plants. And what if there is no significant amount of wind that is being generated, because these turbines are actually run by the wind. Okay, so they are wind based turbines. So if there is no enough wind to run these turbines, that also creates a lot of problems. And in this renewable energy, we must ensure the availability of the round the clock supply. Okay, so that actually requires robust storage systems, and we should also mitigate the intermittent generation issues. So intermittent generation issues in the sense that, for example, on sunny day we can produce enough electricity, but on the cloudy day we cannot be able to produce enough electricity from the solar projects. But when we store the excess amount of electricity which is being produced on a sunny day, then we can use that electricity which is being already stored, so that the intermittent energy generation issues can be addressed here. And apart from that, the hard to abate sectors, there are certain sectors so which are actually considered as carbon intensive sectors in India. For example, the steel sector and the cement sector. Okay, so in this steel sector and cement sector, carbon capture and utilization storage is essential to significantly reduce its emissions. Now, for example, imagine that a company which has been producing cement, and the cement producing company generates a huge amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and we all knew that this carbon dioxide is a major source of global warming, or it is a greenhouse gas. So therefore, this carbon capture and utilization carbon capture and utilization along with storage will be able to capture the excess amounts of the carbon which is being emitted into the environment, and that is being used in a sustainable manner, and that will also significantly reduces the emissions into the atmosphere. So therefore, in order to achieve this carbon capture and utilization storage, we require advancements in the technology, and we should also significantly invest in the carbon capture aspects. So therefore, finance and technology are very, very important here. However, apart from that, there are certain sector specific challenges and solutions also given. Now, cement and steel are carbon intensive sectors, there is no doubt about that. So first and foremost, when you look at the cement industry, now cement production is highly carbon intensive. These cement factories generate excess amounts of carbon into the atmosphere. So therefore, within the cement industry, the clinker production is a major contributor of the emissions into the atmosphere, the carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Now, in this context, the carbon capture, utilization and storage, so that is dubbed as CCUS, carbon capture, utilization and storage, can actually reduce the emissions by 60 to 70%. With cement sector actually needing 2 million tons per annum carbon capture, storage, utilization storage capacity by 2030, so that to achieve the objectives which were already set by the government. And after that, we should also look into the steel industry, because steel industry is also one of the carbon intensive sectors. And in fact, the steel industry in India actually significantly dependent on the coal as well, because coal is a fossil fuel, and when we burn coal, and this also releases carbon into the atmosphere. So therefore, reducing carbon footprint by 25 to 30% by 2030 within the steel industry is very, very crucial for us. And for that particular purpose, we require the technological interventions, and they are very important. Along with that, a significant amount of investments should also be made, and then we will be able to achieve the target of India becoming a net zero by 2070. And after that, we should also look after the green hydrogen program. Now, in this green hydrogen program, the National Green Hydrogen Mission actually aims to integrate the green hydrogen into refining chemical and fertilizer sectors. So that actually requires around 8-9 lakh crore of capital expenditure as well. Now the next very important article is with respect to the archaeologist finds a first evidence of rock art in form of footprints in Mangaluru city. So Mangaluru city is located in Karnataka. So there is a probability that UPSC may ask questions on these archaeological sites, but there is no chance that this may be asked in the mains examination. So it is mostly relevant for your prelims examination. Now what is the context of this particular article? So the context is that the first ever evidence of rock art in Mangaluru city has been found near Bolur Panne Kothade Babbu Swami shrine. So in this particular shrine, rock art in Mangaluru city was actually found. Now this is how the rock arts actually looks like. So these rock arts are ancient form of expression by the primitive people who are illiterate. Okay, so they actually express different phases of their life in this particular form. Okay, so after that we should understand about this rock art as well. Very briefly we'll try to understand this rock art. So rock art is a human made markings which are being placed on the natural surfaces. For example, this is a natural surface, right? So on this natural surface, the human made markings, so these are human made markings which are placed on the natural surfaces and typically on these vertical stone surfaces, and these are known as rock art forms. And in fact the rock art is a global phenomenon, and rock art is found in many culturally diverse regions. For example, in India, one of the ancient and primitive prehistoric rock art is found at Bhimbetka. So I hope all of you know about this Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh, where we can see this rock art form. In fact, the cave paintings also. So therefore it is a culturally diverse, it is found in many culturally diverse regions across the world, and in fact it has been produced in many different contexts throughout the human history. So in terms of technique, the rock art form can be divided into 4 different types. For example, cave paintings that we specifically see in Bhimbetka. Now caves are being used for the purpose of inhabitation by the primitive man, prehistoric man. So cave paintings is one such type, and after that there are also certain petroglyphs which are carved or scattered on a rock surface. So this is the example of these petroglyphs, and after that sculpted rock reliefs. Okay, so there are certain sculpted rock reliefs also, and then geoglyphs. So this is how the geoglyphs actually look like. Now you cannot observe geoglyphs on the surface, so you have to go to a certain height and only then you can observe these geoglyphs, and these geoglyphs usually looks like this. Okay, so when we come to this article, so the rock art is in the form of a pair of human footprints that were found in this Mangaluru. So there are a pair of human footprints and they are found in a natural stone boulder near the shrine, and these footprints might have been created in the 1st or 2nd century AD. Okay, so it is expected that the archaeologists have been believing that these footprints might have been created in the 1st or 2nd century AD. And in fact the rock art is referred to paintings and rock paintings which were unquestionable cognitive evidences of illiterate societies. And this Buddhana Jedu in Udupi district of Karnataka in 2009 is an important rock art site of coastal Karnataka, and there was evidence that of pottery and stone tools of Neolithic period at the Buddhana Jedu site. So next important article is upgraded Tejas Mk1A fighter jet. So we all knew that this fighter jet is indigenously developed by Indian Armed Forces or India. So therefore the context is that the Tejas Mk1A, so this is an advanced version of India's indigenous supersonic fighter aircraft and is poised to bolster the Indian Air Force's capabilities. So it would further augment or further increase India's capabilities. So this upgraded variant builds upon the success of the Tejas program that was initiated in late 1980s. Now there are certain features of this Tejas MK1A. So what are those features? So it incorporates around 50% or more indigenous content compared to its predecessor. Okay, so predecessor version of Tejas. So apart from that, with 40 enhancements, it promises advanced capabilities. So it has a lot of advanced capabilities. And apart from that, this Tejas MK1A is also equipped with Israeli based EL/M 2025 AESA radar, and it will be soon replaced by indigenous Uttam AESA radar. Okay, so the indigenous content on these flights is significantly, of fighter jets, is significantly or gradually increased. And apart from that, this particular fighter jet also offers improved situational awareness with a larger canopy and enhanced aerodynamics as well. And it is capable of carrying various weaponry that includes beyond visual range missiles and advanced short range air-to-air missiles. So those missiles ASRAM, and this is BVR. And apart from that, it also features an indigenously developed digital fly-by-wire flight control system. So what is the significance of this Tejas fighter aircraft? The Tejas program was conceived to replace India's aging MiG-21 and Su-7 aircraft. So these MiG-21 and Su-7 aircrafts were procured from Russia. And Tejas is the lightest and smallest aircraft in its class, with the composite structure contributing to its overall lightness. And in fact, India is also looking for the orders from other countries. Okay, so for that particular reason also, Tejas fighter jet is being upgraded by India. So in fact, it also strengthens the versatile capabilities for ground attack, interception, air-to-air combat and air defense by this aircraft. The MK1A further advanced version and MK2 variants are slated to replace aging MiG-21, MiG-29 and Spaycat Jaguar aircraft in the Indian Air Force. So that is the advanced version of MK1A Tejas aircraft. Okay, so that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So we'll meet tomorrow again. So please like the video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.